Everyone, and welcome to the Life Multiplied podcast. Today I have a very special guest with me. If you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Liz German. I'm the president and CEO at YWCA McLean County.
Okay, perfect. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I've been in Bloomington-Normal 22-ish years now. I'm from a really small town, grew up east of here and came to Bloomington-Normal for college. I went to Illinois State University and majored in politics and government and thought I was going to, be a politician that solved the world. And instead ended up in the nonprofit kind of education side of things. Okay. So I live in Normal and I have a really cute, very senior dog. And that's about it, I guess.
So you're what we call, what would you call it? Just somebody who went to school here, stayed, and never left. That's correct? Because I'm the same way. I moved here to go to school. I'm from a smaller town, and I never left.
Right. It's a good in-between size. Coming from a small town, but then, something like Chicago's too big for me, so it's a nice
We're literally the same. That's literally
sandwich.
The same for me. Awesome. So let's just start by sharing with our audience, and then just myself as well. Can you tell us about the YWCA? Just give us a background on the mission and kind of what you do there and what you do as an organization.
Yeah, so I could probably talk for a long time, but I'll try to synthesize it here. So we have been around since 1908 in some form or fashion. Our mission is eliminating racism and empowering women, promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all, which is a mouthful and also a very, obviously it's a really lofty mission. And so that's played out in a lot of different ways. In 1908, when we started, some of our first programs were babysitting services, exercise classes for women, a tea room where women could talk about the issues of their time and social things that were happening, because all of those things were seen as inappropriate or taboo or not allowed. And so that really lent itself to the empowering women piece. It wasn't until the 60s, 70s where we saw more of the eliminating racism part come into the mission, and we radically changed as an organization in terms of just the acceptance. So, what started as a white Christian movement of women a couple hundred years ago is now much more inclusive. So we are non-denominational, and our programs support the community in the same way that they support that mission, but obviously the community is much different now than it was 116 years ago. So we have a variety of child care programs. We have the rape crisis program for McLean County, where we serve survivors and their loved ones after sexual assault or abuse. We have a program called Labyrinth that works with women who've experienced incarceration. And there's some workforce readiness pieces to that as well. Strive, which is our workforce development program, and Labyrinth Make Goods, which is our social enterprise. And then we also have a program called RSVP, so Retired Senior Volunteer Program. So we connect folks who are 55 and older with nonprofits in the community. And we've been doing that for 30 plus years. So, we shift and change depending on what the community needs and depending on what really meets that mission. And so it's evolved over time, but in a good way. It gives us a lot of flexibility to do that.
Yeah. And you said you've been with the YWCA since when?
So I actually started in 2007 as a part-time employee.
Okay.
I was working full-time for a company here in town after college and just trying to figure out really what I wanted to do. And I had been volunteering actually with Habitat for Humanity, but just needed something else that kind of fulfilled me.
Sure,
and so I started working part-time as the before and after school teacher at Hayworth Elementary when we had a program there, and went full-time in 2008 when a assistant director role opened up in the Early Learning Center. So I've been with YWCA ever since then, and just in a variety of roles. So it's been really interesting. Like some of that progression I've actually seen because I've been there and watched programs start and programs end and programs change.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think it's great when somebody starts from, like not saying like the bottom of the totem pole, but like you're starting as an entry-level job and then you're seeing and like knowing those roles throughout the organization. So when you do become like you are the CEO, president, like you can kind of have a better understanding of like how it all goes down and like all of those roles, like you can put yourself in that place.
Yes.
So I think that's beneficial.
Yeah, I know where the pain points are.
Yes.
And especially because I was not your typical before and after school teacher. I wasn't a college student. I had a full-time job. I didn't have a lot of connection to the other parts of YW. I was working off-site. And so now when we have staff who maybe only work at a school a couple days a week or who aren't at the main location, I really know what it's like for them to need to feel connected and to understand what we do. And I mean, even explaining to staff in one department what the other department does and how that supports what they do. So it takes a lot of intentional conversations to connect the dots for people, even inside the organization, because you're focused on the clients in front of you, whether that's the kids or the survivors or.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So you said you went to school for political science. Is that what you said? Okay.
Yes.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what drew you to the nonprofit world and maybe specifically the YWCA?
Yeah. So about halfway through college, I started to think maybe this isn't going to be what I end up doing. Maybe I should be getting my teaching certificate. I come from a family of teachers. Okay. Everybody in my family was a teacher actually who went to ISU.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it was too late. So I just had to ride that major out. And but I did take a few classes. And so when this opportunity to do some part-time teaching came up, I'm like, well, I'll go for that because that fits the child part. And it also fits kind of that mission and that goal that I had through the political science realm. So it's a really good mix of the things that I love. In my role now, it's like I get to work on the education side in terms of leading those directors, but then I also get to look at the legislation and advocate for things that help people and talk to legislators about what's good and what's working and what's not working. And so it's kind of like a choose your own adventure thing where I got to do all the things.
You got the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what has been the most rewarding aspect of leading the WYCA?
So I think what's interesting is whether you think about the program shifting or you think about the growth in staff. We have several staff. I'm not the only staff member that's been there a long time and had multiple roles. And even when you look at some of the kids we've seen progress, like being able to see change from that 15 to 20 year time frame is really rewarding, inspiring, and to me it's a really good benefit for us to then share with the community. So to give you an example, we have 3 staff right now who were in the early learning program when I was a director, who are now 18 to 22. And one is a teacher at a junior high locally, and she works for us in the summer. The other 2 are 18 and 19, and one's working full-time for us and one's working part-time. And so I saw them as, a 4, 5, 6-year-old, and now I'm seeing them as a professional adult. And so their connection to the YW is different than mine. And to see that growth is amazing. I also think to see the shift that we've seen with survivors and people believing victims of sexual assault and abuse, because Me Too and the Me Too movement happening in 2017, 2018, we were already providing that service. We have since 2002. So we saw kind of the before and now the after. And while we still have a ways to go, you do see people now more readily able to talk about it and interested and trying to figure out how to do prevention tactics and education. It did really open the door for us to actually be able to talk about this kind of taboo subject and actually have conversations that we probably wouldn't have had without that movement. Okay. So
awesome. So what do you see as the biggest opportunity for growth in the coming years?
Oh, there's so much. So there's so much going on right now with early childhood and education in general, not only because of just challenges that I think would have naturally happened, but also the pandemic and then how that affected education and that gap there. So I think that's huge. And I also think what we've accomplished with prevention education and getting a generation of kids who know how to talk about what's right and what's wrong and report things and have more emotionally intelligent relationships. I'm excited to see where that goes, because I think that's a huge, it's like, what will it be like in 30 years when we have a lot of kids who are okay talking about feelings and can just work things out. But there's so much potential. And I think the thing that I maybe am most excited about is the unknown, because, our goal would be, if we could work ourselves out of a job, that would be great. If we didn't have to fulfill that mission, if it was fulfilled, we'll go home, we'll find something else. So to see what the community needs of us and what those programs look like. Yeah. It's really interesting because it could be anything and everything,
right.
depending on where we go.
Okay, awesome. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to make a difference in their own community and they don't know where to start?
Well, they can call me. I'll find a place for them. So if they are older, 55 and older, that's why we have RSVP, that volunteer matching program, because a lot of people aren't sure where to start and they don't want to call up a bunch of places. So that's kind of a clearinghouse. That's nice. We also have various programs within our organization, obviously, that you could volunteer with, if kids are your thing, or you want to help on the crisis hotline, or you want to help mentor somebody. We have all those opportunities. But I think the biggest thing is, I think people sometimes think volunteering is like raking some leaves or painting something and then going home. And I think the most impactful volunteer opportunities are those opportunities where you get to know the programs and you get to know the community at a deeper level. And so one of the good experiences that I had before I was in this role was being on the Habitat for Humanity Women Build board and seeing how we raise money for that house every year. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't actually ever physically work on the houses, but I helped bring that money together and watching the administration of that and seeing what were the challenges and what could I do as a community member to support that and how could I advocate for them. So there's lots of things people can do even if physically they can't volunteer. I think people always kind of assume it's you show up and you do the thing and you go home, but there's so much more to it than that. Even supporting nonprofits by supporting sharing things, awareness. If you tell people about our services and somebody gets help, you've helped the community. Right. So I would say just do one thing and see if you like it, see if you like that organization or that program. And then it can always lead to something else. I mean, my part-time job led to this, and I didn't sign up for that when I never knew this was coming. It just happened. Yeah.
So do you have internships?
We do.
Available? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Each department has internships available, and depending on the department, depends on how much training they need. So, for example, Stepping Stones, the Rape Crisis Program, they have to be fully trained to ever work with clients or have any access to the data or anything.
That makes sense, yeah.
But other programs, it's a little bit easier just to get involved and support. And then we have mentors that work with our Labyrinth clients. We have folks that all they do is help with Labyrinth Made Goods pop-ups. So they help with an extra set of hands so we can go out and sell the candles and talk about why it started and the importance of the program. And so even doing that, it seems like maybe a small thing, but it's so helpful because then we might get to go to an event that we otherwise wouldn't. Right. And then all those people know what we do and why we do it.
Yes.
So
Awesome. So do you want to share, do you have any upcoming events? I know that, so we were just there for a workforce meeting and you kind of gave us a little tour of the renovations that you're going through. So do you kind of want to share, maybe somebody knows or have been to the YWCA, but you're getting all this new construction, you kind of want to share about that?
Sure. Yeah, so we're in the middle of the Stepping Stones expansion. We've had a campaign going for almost 2 years now, and we've finished with the fundraising aspect. Now we're into construction and hoping to be done with construction probably in January, and we will have a public open house then to show folks the space. And essentially, we're turning a lot of old health and fitness spaces, which we no longer do, into actual usable spaces for our programs. And so we are blessed with a lot of land and a lot of building, but we were not blessed with the appropriate spaces for what we do. Okay. And so that's why we had to make that shift and that change. And so there will be an opportunity for folks to come see the space before survivors are in and out of it. And, then we'll keep it confidential, of course. Yeah. And then in February, we'll have some educational programming. We typically do an Allyship Institute in February around Black History Month. This year we're going to do something a little bit different, but it's definitely aligned with that, and there'll be more details to come with that soon. There'll be lots of community education the first half of 2025. Okay. And then we also, again, don't have a date, but we are doing a reentry simulation. So if you've heard of a poverty simulation or Stepping Stones has one too, where you kind of walk the walk through what it's like to be either in poverty or be a survivor of sexual assault. Our staff has developed a reentry simulation. So it's a couple hours, you come together, you kind of walk through what it's like to re-enter society and kind of navigate the challenges that our clients face, so that folks can get a better understanding of what challenges there are, that it's not just you get out and everything's like back to normal and fixed.
Yes.
And so that will be coming out in 2025. We are the hub for the Illinois Humanities Project, which there's, I don't want to say the wrong number, there's a few hubs across the state. And so we're doing a couple big events to kind of promote healing. It connects kind of trauma and programs like Labyrinth with the arts and the humanities. So the other one will probably be more arts focused, but we're really excited because it's something new, and there's also often a lot of misrepresentation when it comes to people who've experienced incarceration. So this is a good opportunity for folks to really see what it's like.
Okay. So be sure to follow them on social media and check out their website for those upcoming events. And then I know we kind of talked about before we started this that there are job openings. Do you want to just share a couple that maybe you need to fill, or kind of how to apply and whatnot?
Sure.
Just real quick.
Sure. So we have several teaching positions open in the Early Learning Child Care Center. And so they do have qualifications around who's teacher qualified versus assistant teacher qualified. But we also will have a couple other positions open here in the next couple months. We got an additional federal grant to support prevention educators and stepping stones. So we'll be hiring 2 more prevention educators. They'll work with kids in the schools. And then we also have an administrator position open right now that kind of oversees all of our educational components. So usually our administrative positions go pretty quickly, so I'm sure we'll have lots of interest in those. But we are always in need of somebody who is looking to work with kids, and we can even help with, there's like scholarships and things if you don't have that education, but you just want to get your foot in the door, get that experience, and then there's a scholarship that can pay for college courses to get you certified.
Okay, awesome. And then when it comes to internships, do you do like fall, spring, summer, or like a year internship? How does that work?
We do all the things.
Okay, perfect.
So some of them, like the social work interns we have, they tend to want to do a full year, and because they have to get trained and they work with clients and much more intensive. But then we'll do just like, even like that Illinois Wesleyan quarter, that weird semester they have that I never know the timing. We'll do whatever makes sense, because for us, we really want to connect, not only because we want their input and their ideas, but also we want to make sure they know about our services, because colleges can be kind of, it can be like a bubble. So we want to get want to connect.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. Yeah. So let's dive into kind of what you love about Bloomington-Normal. You've lived here, you've gone to school here. Can you kind of just share with us?
I like a lot of things.
I know there's so many.
So I will say whenever I'm like, say, out and I'm talking about our YWCA, say I'm out of town talking about Bloomington-Normal, one of the things I always say is we are very resource rich. If you look at our area compared to other areas in central Illinois, we have a lot of nonprofits. We have a lot of people who are trying to better the community. We have a very beautiful community. Most of the area is very well maintained, and I think we have a very family friendly community. Like, you look around, there's always something to do. I think we're working more on the nightlife side of things, but I go to bed early, so that's not an issue for me. But there's a lot. I think if anything, the challenge is explaining to people about all the things there are to do in the community. And so I love that. I like being part of a college town. I think there's something about that that's unique.
It keeps us young.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very nostalgic, too, if you went there.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I have friends that I went to college with that come back every year at the holidays, and we do, we go to all the restaurants that we went to. We try to go to all the activities we used to do, and it's just part of, I don't know, it does kind of keep you young. It makes you feel like you're still, I'm always like, those kids look so young when they're walking across the quad. But yeah, there's just a lot going on. I feel like it is a very active community.
Yeah, I agree. So where are your go-to places? What do you like to do on the weekends? What are your favorite restaurants?
So one thing I will say is normally I would just have restaurant recommendations for you, but I have a little sister through Big Brothers Big Sisters, and so she's exposed me to like the child family friendly side of things that maybe I wouldn't go. So we do the Altitude a lot, the trampoline park. Yeah,
that's fun.
Iron Coyote, Artful Designs, paint pottery, that kind of thing. So I've definitely explored more of those like kid things now. Sure. But I like to go uptown and I like to go downtown.
Okay.
Because I like to go into the little stores and like find things that are one of a kind or local. Go to Spice Works.
Oh yeah, that's
kinda,
so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the restaurants, like the Rock was there when I was in college. It was a different location, so we always go to the Rock when my friends come back home. The pub is a classic one. I've got folks now, Fort Jesse wasn't around, but that's a
People love that.
Uh-huh.
There's always a line.
Yep. Rosie's, just those things that kind of are nostalgic. We honestly just like to drive around campus too and kind of walk around campus because it's changed so much.
Yeah.
The dorms I lived in are no longer.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we end this?
Just I encourage people to get involved, and if you're not sure how, reach out to us. We always find a way to figure something out.
Fit you in somewhere.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Life Multiplied podcast.
Thanks for having me.